In the dim glow of chandeliers, Eliza Morgan clutched her champagne glass, scanning the sea of familiar faces gathered to celebrate her 15th anniversary. Beneath her perfect smile, doubts festered. Whispers of late-night phone calls and vanished weekends loomed large. As her husband Daniel, ever the charismatic negotiator, raised his glass to address their guests, an unsettling truth twisted in the depths of Eliza's heart. His poised words were carefully chosen, his gaze never quite meeting hers, hinting at a revelation that could shatter their picture-perfect facade. Stay with us if you want to find out how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. The champagne glass trembled in Eliza Morgan's hand as she scanned a room of 68 guests, friends, colleagues, and family members who had gathered to celebrate her 15th wedding anniversary. The crystal chandelier overhead cast fractured light across the rented ballroom of the Westfield Hotel, the same venue where she and Daniel had held their wedding reception a decade and a half earlier. Her cream-colored dress, purchased after weeks of agonizing over the perfect outfit, suddenly felt too tight across her chest, constricting her breathing as she watched her husband of 15 years tap his knife against his own champagne flute. The gentle ping silenced the murmurs of conversation. Daniel Morgan, still handsome at 43, with salt and pepper hair and the same confident posture that had first attracted her to him in graduate school, stood before their assembled guests. From across the room, Eliza caught her sister Catherine's eye. Catherine offered an encouraging smile, unaware that anything was amiss. But Eliza knew. She had known for weeks that something was wrong. The late-night phone calls Daniel took in his study, the unexplained weekend conferences, the way he'd stopped reaching for her in bed. The passwords changed on his devices. She had ignored the signs, focused instead on planning this anniversary party, a celebration she had hoped might rekindle whatever was fading between them. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," Daniel began, his voice steady and practiced, the same voice he used in the boardroom to secure multi-million-dollar deals. "It means a lot to have you all here to mark this significant milestone." Eliza noticed the slight hesitation, the careful choice of words. Not special milestone, not happy anniversary, just significant. She gripped her glass tighter. 15 years is a long time, he continued, not looking at her. "Eliza and I have shared many memories together, built a life, faced challenges." The room had gone completely still. Even the waitstaff had paused along the walls, sensing the strange tension building in Daniel's speech. "But I've realized recently that sometimes, no matter how much history you share with someone, no matter how much you've invested, you have to be honest with yourself about what you truly want for your future." A cold wave washed over Eliza's body. Her lips went numb. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. Not in front of everyone they knew. "Eliza," Daniel finally turned to face her, his eyes meeting hers across the sea of guests. "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like shattered glass, suspended in time before falling. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Someone dropped a plate. Eliza's mother let out a strangled cry from somewhere near the back. Catherine half rose from her chair, her face contorted in shock and fury. But Eliza herself remained perfectly still, champagne glass still delicately balanced between her fingers. 15 years of marriage, 3 miscarriages, his law school debt that she'd helped pay off while working 2 jobs, the house they'd renovated together, the dreams they'd built and abandoned and rebuilt, all of it crystallized in this moment of public humiliation. She saw Daniel's expression, not remorseful, but relieved, as if this theatrical cruelty was somehow liberating for him. And in that moment, with 68 pairs of eyes watching her, waiting for her collapse, something hardened inside Eliza Morgan. The room waited for tears, for screaming, for the scene that would give them something to discuss for months afterward. Instead, Eliza set her champagne glass down on the nearest table with a soft clink. "Is she here tonight?" Eliza asked, her voice surprisingly steady. Daniel's confident facade cracked slightly. "What? Your girlfriend. The one you've been seeing for the past 4 months. Is she here tonight, or were you planning to pick her up afterward?" Eliza glanced around the room. Is it Jen from your office? The one who's been texting you at 2 a.m.? Or someone I haven't met? A flush crept up Daniel's neck. Near the bar, a young woman with copper hair and a black dress took a step backward, confirming Eliza's suspicion. I don't think this is the appropriate time, Daniel started. You chose the time and place, Daniel, not me, Eliza replied, her voice gaining strength. You chose to end our marriage in front of our friends and family. You want an audience. So now you have one. She turned to face the stunned guests, many of whom were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats. What my husband failed to mention in his little speech is that 3 days ago, I found out he's been embezzling from his firm's client trust accounts to pay for his new lifestyle. The fancy hotels weren't for conferences. The mysterious withdrawals weren't for a surprise anniversary gift. Daniel's face drained of color. Eliza, stop. The managing partners don't know yet, she continued, addressing the room while ignoring his interruption. Neither does the State Bar Association. But they will tomorrow morning when they receive the documentation I've compiled. I was actually planning to tell you privately tonight, Daniel, after our guests left. I thought 15 years of marriage at least deserved that courtesy. But apparently, we have different standards. A strange, almost surreal calm had overtaken her. The room swam in and out of focus as she spoke, but her voice remained unwavering. So yes, you can have your divorce. You can have your girlfriend. But you won't have your law license for much longer. And since I've already spoken with Gloria Fielding, she nodded toward a stern-faced woman who had been Daniel's mentor at the firm, you won't have your partnership either. Gloria's tight nod confirmed Eliza's words. Daniel's eyes darted between them, the full impact of his miscalculation beginning to register on his face. You didn't just betray me, Eliza said, now speaking directly to Daniel, her voice dropping lower, so he had to strain to hear her. You betrayed yourself. Everything you claimed to stand for. She slipped her wedding ring off her finger and placed it on the table beside her champagne glass. The small diamond caught the light. Not an extravagant stone, but one they'd chosen together when they had nothing but student debt and big dreams. Goodbye, Daniel. With that, Eliza turned and walked toward the exit, her steps measured and deliberate. The crowd parted silently before her. As she reached the door, she heard the murmurs begin, saw from the corner of her eye as Catherine stood to follow her, as Daniel's parents turned away from their son in evident shame, as the copper-haired woman slipped out a side door. The cool night air hit Eliza's face as she stepped outside. Only then did her composed facade begin to crack. Her hands shook violently as she fumbled for her car keys. 15 years. Gone. The future she had planned evaporated in an instant of public cruelty. Catherine caught up with her at her car. Liz, my God, are you okay? I can't believe you would. I can't talk right now, Kath. Eliza managed, her voice finally breaking. I just need to go. You're not driving like this. Get in. I'm taking you home. Home. The 5-bedroom colonial they'd purchased 8 years ago, thinking they'd fill it with children. The place where, just that morning, she'd arranged fresh flowers in anticipation of the anniversary weekend she thought lay ahead. She couldn't go back there. Not tonight. Not home, she whispered. I can't. Catherine nodded, understanding immediately. My place, then. The drive to Catherine's apartment passed in a blur. The carefully constructed composure that had carried Eliza through her response to Daniel's announcement finally crumbled completely. Years of suppressed fears, suspicions, and heartbreak poured out as Catherine navigated the nighttime streets in silence, occasionally reaching over to squeeze her sister's hand. By the time they reached Catherine's small 2-bedroom apartment in Oakwood Heights, Eliza felt hollowed out, as if something essential had been scraped from inside her. She moved robotically, accepting the spare pajamas Catherine offered, mechanically washing her face, removing the carefully applied makeup that she'd spent an hour perfecting for the party. In the bathroom mirror, Eliza barely recognized herself. Her eyes, usually bright and determined, looked vacant. Her skin appeared paper-thin, bluish veins visible at her temples. She was 39 years old, about to be divorced, with no children, and a career she'd scaled back to support her husband's ambitions. Who am I now? she whispered to her reflection. The question lingered, unanswered, as she made her way to Catherine's guest bedroom and collapsed onto the unfamiliar mattress. Sleep came in fitful bursts, punctuated by dreams of standing naked in front of a laughing crowd, of Daniel and the copper-haired woman walking away hand in hand, of falling endlessly down a dark well. Morning arrived with the harsh buzz of her phone. Dozens of missed calls, text messages, and voicemails flooded her screen. Friends expressing shock and support. Her mother, frantic with worry. Her boss, wondering if she'd be coming in on Monday. And buried among them, a text from Daniel. We need to talk. What you did was unforgivable. What SHE did was unforgivable. The audacity sparked something inside her, a flicker of the anger that had been smothered beneath shock and grief. Catherine appeared in the doorway with coffee. You're awake. I wasn't sure if you'd want to eat, but I made toast. Thanks. Eliza sat up, her body aching as if she'd been in a physical fight. In a way, she had been. Has your phone been exploding too? Like fireworks on the 4th of July. Apparently, after you left, all hell broke loose. Daniel tried to do damage control, but Gloria Fielding publicly cut him dead, and your friend Marcos actually poured a drink on him. Despite everything, Eliza felt a small smile tug at her lips. Loyal, dramatic Marcos, her friend since college, would absolutely do something like that. The thing is, Catherine continued carefully, sitting on the edge of the bed, people are talking about you, Liz. Not just about what Daniel did, but about how you handled it. You're trending on several neighborhood social media groups. Someone recorded the whole thing. What? Eliza grabbed her sister's phone and watched in horror as a slightly shaky video showed her confrontation with Daniel from the previous night. The clip had thousands of shares already. Comments range from supportive, queen energy, to judgmental. They both seemed toxic. Seeing herself from the outside, her rigid posture, her controlled voice, the flash of cold fury in her eyes, was disorienting. That woman seemed like a stranger. Take it down, she whispered. Can we get it taken down? It's already everywhere, Liz. I'm sorry. The reality of her new situation crashed over Eliza in waves. Not only was her marriage over, but the private collapse of her life had become public spectacle. She would be forever known as the woman whose husband asked for a divorce at their anniversary party, and who exposed his crimes in return. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Gloria Fielding. We need to speak. The firm is initiating proceedings based on the evidence you provided. Daniel has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. It was what she had wanted, what Daniel deserved. But the confirmation brought no satisfaction. Just emptiness. What do I do now? She asked Catherine, not really expecting an answer. Catherine squeezed her hand. First you breathe. Then you call Vivian. Vivian Chun was not just the most sought-after divorce attorney in the city, but also Catherine's law school roommate. If anyone could help Eliza navigate the mess ahead, it would be Vivian. Then, Catherine continued, you let yourself feel whatever you need to feel. You've been so strong for so long, Liz. Too strong, maybe. The simple permission broke something in Eliza. Tears came, not the dramatic sobs of the previous night, but a quiet, steady stream that felt like it might never end. Years of compromises, of swallowed disappointments, of rationalizing Daniel's increasingly selfish behavior. Years of trying to be the perfect wife, the supportive partner, while her own dreams gathered dust. I gave him everything, she whispered. I put my PhD on hold when he got the offer at Preston and Fielding. I moved away from my friends, my support system. I planned my entire life around his. I know. Catherine stroked her hair, the way their mother used to when they were children. But that's over now. You get to decide what comes next. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. What did she want? Who was she without Daniel Morgan defining her existence? The days that followed blurred together. The meeting with Vivian, who took her case pro bono out of both friendship and outrage at Daniel's behavior. The painful process of returning to the house to collect essential belongings while Daniel was at work. The awkward conversation with her boss, who had seen the viral video and offered her paid leave that she couldn't afford to take. The calls from journalists seeking comment on the anniversary party divorce. that had captured public imagination. A week after that fateful night, Eliza sat in Vivian's sleek downtown office, reviewing preliminary divorce papers. The evidence of Daniel's financial misconduct meant she had significant leverage, but the process would still be brutal. He's claiming defamation, Vivian explained, her precise, no-nonsense tone somehow comforting in its clarity. Says you fabricated the embezzlement claims to punish him publicly. The bank records don't lie, Eliza replied, fatigue evident in her voice. No, they don't. But this isn't just about facts, Eliza. It's about narrative. Daniel is fighting for his professional life. He's already lost his partnership, and the Bar Association investigation is underway. He's desperate, and desperate people can be dangerous. Dangerous how? Vivian's expression softened slightly. He's been calling mutual friends, telling them you've been unstable for months, that you imagined his affair, that you've been paranoid and delusional. He's suggesting your miscarriages affected your mental health more severely than anyone realized. The betrayal cut deeper than Eliza thought possible, using their lost children as a weapon against her. It was unimaginable cruelty from the man she had once believed would be the father of her children. That's why I need you to be prepared, Vivian continued. This will get ugly before it gets better. Are you sure you don't want to stay with your parents for a while? Somewhere out of the spotlight. The suggestion was tempting. Her parents' home in Arizona offered distance, anonymity, a place to hide while the storm raged. But something inside Eliza rebelled at the thought. No, she said firmly. I'm not running away. I didn't do anything wrong. Vivian nodded, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. Then we fight. But you need to be prepared for what that means. Your privacy, your past, your decisions, everything will be scrutinized. I understand. But understanding the concept and living the reality proved to be vastly different experiences. In the weeks that followed, Eliza discovered just how vindictive Daniel could be. Former friends took sides. Colleagues treated her with awkward sympathy or cool distance. The whispers followed her everywhere, in the grocery store, at the gym, even in her apartment building, where she'd moved after Catherine's place proved too small for an extended stay. Daniel's counter-narrative gained traction in certain circles. The story evolved. Poor Daniel, trapped in a marriage with an emotionally unstable woman who couldn't accept that their relationship had run its course. A woman who fabricated criminal accusations when faced with rejection. The copper-haired woman, Jessica, Eliza learned, was portrayed as Daniel's emotional support during a difficult time, not the affair partner she actually was. The worst moment came 6 weeks after the party, when Eliza's mother called in tears. Daniel came to see us, she said, her voice shaking. He brought photos, Eliza, from your therapy sessions after the second miscarriage. The therapist's notes. He says you had a breakdown then, that you've never been the same. Eliza felt physically ill. Those sessions had been sacred. The darkest, most vulnerable moments of her life laid bare in the safety of therapeutic confidence. How had he accessed those records? Who had violated her privacy so completely? Mom, he's lying. Whatever he showed you. I know, sweetheart. Your father threw him out. But he's sending these materials to people. To the partners at his firm, to friends. He's trying to paint you as... Her mother couldn't finish the sentence. That night, alone in her new apartment with its blank walls and rented furniture, Eliza hit bottom. The carefully constructed image of Daniel she had maintained for 15 years, brilliant, principled, occasionally selfish but fundamentally good, shattered completely. In its place stood a stranger, a man capable of weaponizing her greatest pain against her. She sat on the bare floor of her living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes, and allowed herself to feel the full weight of her situation. Not just the end of her marriage, but the destruction of her past. Every memory now required reevaluation. Every happy moment called into question. Had she ever truly known Daniel Morgan? Had she been blind, or had he changed so gradually that she failed to notice until it was too late? Rain lashed against the windows as Eliza reached for her phone and did something she'd resisted for weeks. She Googled herself. Eliza Morgan anniversary divorce, yielded thousands of results. The video, of course. News articles with varying degrees of accuracy. Reddit threads analyzing her body language, her tone, her choice of words. Blogs debating whether she was a feminist hero or a vindictive harpy. And most disturbing of all, a newly created website. The truth about Eliza Morgan. Anonymous, but clearly Daniel's work. It contains selective excerpts from her therapy records, out-of-context quotes from emails and text messages, and a timeline suggesting her increasing paranoia and instability. She should have felt anger, outrage. Instead, a strange calm descended. Daniel had taken everything else, her marriage, her home, her privacy, her dignity. But sitting there on the floor of her empty apartment, Eliza realized there was one thing he couldn't take, her truth. With steady hands, she opened her laptop and began to write. Not a rebuttal, not a defense, but her story. Raw, honest, and complete. The early years of their marriage, the genuine love, the shared dreams. The gradual shifts in Daniel's behavior. The miscarriages that had broken them in different ways. Her suspicions and the evidence she gathered. The devastating discovery of his financial crimes, motivated not by necessity, but by a desire to impress his younger girlfriend. She wrote through the night, fueled by a clarity that felt almost transcendent. By morning, she had produced over 15,000 words, a complete account that neither vilified Daniel nor sanctified herself. It was simply true in all its messy, painful complexity. Without overthinking it, she published it on Medium under her own name, with a simple title, What Actually Happened? My Response to My Husband's Public Request for Divorce. Then she slept, deeply and dreamlessly, for the first time since the anniversary party. She awoke to her phone exploding with notifications. The post had gone viral overnight, shared by celebrities, commented on by thousands. Where the video had made her a momentary sensation, her written account transformed her into something else entirely. A voice for countless women who had experienced similar betrayals, gaslighting, and public humiliation. Vivian called, initially furious that Eliza had published something without legal review, then gradually impressed by the impact it was having. This changes our strategy, she admitted. Daniel's team has been reaching out. They want to settle. I'm not interested in settling, Eliza replied, surprising herself with her certainty. I want my day in court. I want the truth on record. It could get worse before it gets better, Vivian warned. It already has, Eliza said. I have nothing left to lose. But she was wrong about that. 2 days later, as she was leaving her temporary job at a local bookstore, her firm having placed her on extended leave due to the distraction of her situation, Eliza found her former mother-in-law waiting by her car. Patricia Morgan had always been kind to Eliza, if somewhat distant. A proper Southern woman who valued appearances and family legacy above all, she had welcomed Eliza into the Morgan fold with reserved warmth 15 years earlier. They hadn't spoken since the night of the party. Patricia, Eliza said cautiously, is everything all right? The older woman's face was drawn, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. No, Eliza, everything is not all right. Daniel attempted suicide last night. The world tilted sideways. Despite everything, despite the hatred that had grown where love once lived, the news hit Eliza like a physical blow. Is he? He'll recover, physically, Patricia said, her voice flat. His assistant found him in time. But he's blaming you. Your article. He says you've destroyed him. A complex wave of emotions washed over Eliza. Shock, guilt, anger, and beneath it all, a terrible sadness for the man she had once loved with her whole heart. I never wanted to destroy him, Patricia. I just couldn't let him destroy me. Patricia's expression hardened. You could have handled this privately, with dignity. Instead, you chose public revenge. After he demanded a divorce in front of everyone we know, Eliza felt a flash of the old anger. After he accessed my private therapy records and used my miscarriages against me, where was his concern for dignity then? They stood in silence, two women connected by a man who had wounded them both in different ways. Finally, Patricia spoke again, her voice softer. He wants to see you. At the hospital. He says there are things you need to hear from him directly. Every instinct warned Eliza against going. Daniel was manipulative, vindictive. This could be another trap, another opportunity to paint her as the villain in their story. But a deeper intuition, one she had ignored for too long during her marriage, told her that this meeting was necessary. Not for Daniel, but for herself, for closure. The hospital room was dimly lit, the rhythmic beeping of monitors providing a soundtrack to the grim tableau. Daniel lay propped against white pillows, his skin ashen, dark circles like bruises beneath his eyes. He looked older than his 43 years, diminished somehow. The sight provoked an unwelcome surge of tenderness in Eliza that she quickly suppressed. "You came," he said, his voice raspy. "Patricia said you wanted to see me." He gestured weakly to a chair beside the bed. Eliza remained standing. "I read what you wrote," he said after a moment. "Your article. And it was true." The admission seemed to cost him physically. Most of it, anyway. "I didn't recognize myself in your description, but then I realized. That's who I've become." "When did that happen, Liz? When did I turn into someone capable of hurting you like this?" The use of her nickname, Liz, not Eliza, struck her as presumptuous, intimate in a way he no longer had the right to be. "I don't know, Daniel. It happened so gradually, I didn't see it until it was too late." He closed his eyes briefly. "I told myself I deserved more, that you were holding me back, that the money I took was just an advance on what I was worth." A bitter laugh escaped him. "I believe my own lies. Why am I here?" Eliza asked, suddenly tired. "What do you want from me?" "Forgiveness," he said simply. "Not for me. I don't deserve it. But for you, so you can move on." The audacity was so typically Daniel that Eliza almost laughed. Even now, even here, he was telling her what she needed, prescribing the correct emotional response. "My forgiveness isn't yours to request," she said quietly. "And my healing isn't your concern anymore." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I hope you get help, Daniel. Real help. But I won't be part of your redemption story." As she walked down the hospital corridor, Eliza felt a weight lifting, not completely, but noticeably. The encounter hadn't provided the catharsis Daniel might have hoped for, but it had given her something more valuable. Confirmation that she was finally free of emotional responsibility for him. Outside, spring had arrived while Eliza was buried in divorce proceedings and legal battles. Cherry blossoms lined the hospital driveway, their delicate pink petals occasionally catching in the gentle breeze. She paused, watching them dance against the blue sky, and took a deep breath that felt like her first in months. Her phone rang. Catherine, checking in after hearing about Daniel's hospitalization. "Are you okay? Do you want me to come get you?" "I'm okay," Eliza replied, surprised to find it wasn't a lie. "Actually, I think I'm going to walk for a while. The weather's beautiful. Call me if you need anything," Catherine said, concern still evident in her voice. "I will." Eliza slipped her phone into her pocket and began walking with no particular destination in mind. 6 months had passed since the anniversary party that had explosively ended her marriage. 6 months of legal battles, public scrutiny, and private grief. The divorce wasn't finalized yet, but Daniel's suicide attempt had changed the tenor of the proceedings. His legal team had withdrawn many of their more aggressive claims. The Bar Association investigation into his financial misconduct was ongoing, but no longer her concern. Her article had opened unexpected doors. A publisher had reached out about expanding it into a memoir. A women's advocacy group had invited her to speak about gaslighting and emotional abuse. Her old academic department had contacted her about returning to complete her PhD. Possibilities she had long ago surrendered were suddenly viable again. As she walked, Eliza found herself approaching the Westfield Hotel, the scene of both her wedding reception and its public dissolution. On impulse, she entered the lobby and made her way to the ballroom where it had happened. It was being set up for another event. Round tables with white cloths, staff arranging centerpieces, a band testing their equipment on the small stage. "Can I help you, ma'am?" A young staff member approached, clipboard in hand. "No, I attended an event here a while back. Just taking a look." The young woman nodded politely, and returned to her work. Eliza stood for a moment, absorbing the scene. This room that had loomed so large in her nightmares was just a room after all. Impersonal, transitional, already preparing to host another gathering, another collection of human joy or sorrow. She thought of Daniel in his hospital bed, diminished and desperate for absolution. She thought of herself on that night 6 months ago, standing rigid with shock as her life collapsed around her. They were different people now, their trajectories irrevocably altered by the events that had transpired in this very space. The question she had asked a reflection on that first terrible night, "Who am I now?" finally had the beginning of an answer. She was Eliza Morgan, not defined by her marriage or its ending, but by her resilience in its aftermath, by her willingness to speak her truth, regardless of the consequences, by her capacity to rebuild from ruins. As she turned to leave, Eliza caught sight of her reflection in the ballroom's mirrored wall. A woman approaching 40, eyes clear and direct, stance grounded and certain. Not unscathed, but unbroken. Not where she had expected to be at this point in her life, but precisely where she needed to be to become who she was meant to be all along. Outside again, she texted Catherine, "I'm ready to come home now." Not the home she had shared with Daniel. Not even Catherine's apartment, where she'd taken refuge in those first awful weeks. But the home she was creating for herself, a life authentic to her own desires and values, no longer contorted to accommodate someone else's ambitions or ego. The response to her husband's public request for divorce had ultimately not been the composed speech she'd delivered at the anniversary party, nor the viral article that had followed. It was this, her quiet, determined reclamation of herself, one step at a time, in full view of anyone who cared to witness it, and that, more than anything else, had left them all speechless.